The main thing I just want to accomplish in this segment is to really get an understanding or provide an understanding of where of the past. In order to understand the present and the future, you have to understand the past and what has transpired in the past, meaning from the financial crisis of 2008, if we're going to start there. But it really started a lot earlier, going back to 2001, 9/11, and the dot-com crash. And even before that, there was a crash called long-term capital management. And decisions that were made and bailouts that were given, and to bring that to today and to understand how this so-called health crisis has become an economic crisis. And so now with that backdrop, you're saying, okay, what do we do with our money? How do we make money now? Do we do real estate? Do we go into stocks? Do we buy the dip? Because that is a common stock market strategy called buy the dip. That means whenever the stocks go down, oh, this is a great time to buy, because let's say Apple computers, Apple is selling at $300. You wake up today and it's selling at $200. Well, this used to be a good time to buy because it's definitely going to go back to $300 and you will yield a great return on your money for all those that get in now because it's so low. Well, this is a different time, and the situation is to understand why this time is so different. Well, the perception was that prior to, let's be honest, prior to 30, about 45 days ago, the stock market hit an all-time high around mid-February. And or I think it was around February 19th, the stock market hit its all-time high. Now, at that point, these were the best of times. So here we now, in literally 45, 60 days later, we're experiencing the worst of times. So how does that happen? How do you go from the best, and you had administration and president saying this is the best economic time ever, and we are on a train that cannot be derailed, and then literally in a matter of days, you're now at the worst of times. So now we're at all-time lows. As far as percentage wise, we've had some of the biggest drops in percentage drops and point drops in days. So how does that happen? Well, the structure of this whole economy and the perception versus the reality is that you had a strong economy. Now, maybe there are some of you that are listening today that can, even when that was the mantra, when that was the talking point, were probably a little bewildered and saying, what? It doesn't feel that way to me, right? So while these talking points were that this is the best economy, your wages didn't rise, right? So you saw inflation, even though the government numbers said inflation was at all-time lows. You saw that your rent went up. You saw that food prices went up. You saw a lot of inflation in your real life, but you did not see inflation in your income. So this, don't feel bad. You were not the only one. there were millions, hundreds of millions of people that were, you know, experiencing this sort of cognitive dissonance where you're being told one thing, but your life experience is a totally different thing. So don't believe your lying eyes, is what they were telling you. So you were also being told that unemployment is at its all-time low. But if you walked around most cities in LA, New York, Detroit, Miami, most cities in America, you saw a lot of people on Tuesday afternoon just kind of hanging out who didn't have a job. And even the concept of job, reality versus perception, the perception is that an Uber driver, no disrespect to Uber drivers, but Uber driving is not a job in its traditional sense. Jobs in its traditional sense means that there was some kind of steady paycheck, that you had whether you were a salary employee or an hourly employee, but there was some kind of thing to say, I get paid $10 an hour, I get paid $15 an hour, or I get paid 45,000 for the year. Uh, Uber and the gig economy, or other factors that jobs entailed, were things such as time off, sick leave, paid uh, health insurance. All of these factors were what we knew traditionally. Once again, it's also important to understand the past, to understand why we're here in the present. So the idea of jobs in the past, they tried to shift it and tried to change your perception of what a job is to make you accept, you know, driving somebody around and getting whatever that company gives you. Because let's be clear, they started giving you, you know, maybe 40% of the money, and Uber drivers were all the rage and everybody was making money. And then today, when Uber drivers are basically crying and saying that they're making less than minimum wage when they really tally all of the cost and what they're actually coming home with. So these are things that we have to understand, that the perception that we were told of great economies and great things were told from the standpoint of the Uber CEO, right? So if you were that guy or woman, yes, this was the best economy ever. If you were the CEO of many, or you know, of these Fortune 1,000, 5,000 companies, you were experiencing the best times. But why? You were experiencing the best times not because of true economic activity, not because um, you there was a true great economy underlying that was at the heart of your business. No, you were experiencing great times because a couple of reasons. Interest rates were unbelievably low. What the low interest rate, and once again, perception versus reality. Their reality is your perception. Their reality is they can get loans at 2%, 3%. I'm doing pretty well, and I've never got a loan at 2%, right? I still, if I go out and I get a loan, um, I'm still paying 6, 7% on a business loan, 8% on business loans. Not getting loans at, and that's doing everything right. Credit cards. Yeah, interest rates are at all-time low. Oh, interest rates are low. But if you look in your credit card and you look at how much you're paying, I would say I would go out on the limb, and if there are 10 people listening right now, I would say seven of those 10 are paying above 18% on their credit cards. I would be remiss if if of the 10 people or however many people, if a good 60 to 70% of those people weren't paying north, and when they looked in their at their credit card interest rates, they weren't seeing that those interest rates were uh, above 15%. So now, where is this super low interest rate? Your reality, the perception of these, so your car loan interest rates, I guarantee you, you know, good 60 to 70% of the people listening have car loan interest rates that are, you know, uh, probably above 8, 9%. So where are these super low interest rates that are being talked about? Well, they exist, but it's like you know, a rare thing to find in your community. But it does exist for the CEOs and people that are in other communities, but they represent maybe that 1% of the entire country, of the entire population, the entire workforce. So these things do not really apply to you. So now, with that understanding, okay, then, well, what about stocks? Well, should we get in on stocks? Well, understand, besides from real estate, we do stocks, we do cryptocurrencies, um, and we do gold, silver, purchasing and selling. And we see that stocks going back, once again, you have to have a historical understanding of why stocks even went up nominally. Why did that look like it was going up? Well, it looked like it was going up because the number one buyer of stocks within the last 10 years, the number one buyer has been corporations themselves through a device called a stock buyback. Okay. So let me try to explain that to people who, I don't know the nature of the audience and how sophisticated you are. So I'm not talking down. I'm just trying to make sure that everybody understands some of these terms, like a stock buyback. Well, think about, uh, you know, um, think about a musician, Jay-Z, right? Jay-Z puts out an album, and he, the normal way that we would envision whether or not that album performed well in the market was that we would see how many actual people went out and purchased that album, right? So, you know, we have certain metrics such as a gold album, platinum album, diamond album, meaning 10 million. Platinum is that a million people actually went out and bought your album, or gold album, 500,000 people actually went out. But that's a true market economy. Well, now, what if Jay-Z decides to rig that market and buy his own albums? Right? Now, this was a practice that used to be illegal back in the early 80s, all throughout the market. And then under Reagan, they changed that, which enabled now, why did you not see it in mass numbers until after 2008 is because the interest rates went down so far. So let me clarify so that you understand what just happened. For me to buy back my own album, for Jay-Z to buy his album, it would have to be uh, what's called an opportunity cost. Okay. It would have to be that he can buy his album at such a low interest rate that buying it doesn't cost him anything. So if it created an album for $1 and he can buy it for $1.01, he's only paying a 1 cent cost to buy each album. So now if he buys 1 million of his albums, right, he only paid like a penny per every album. But he's able to benefit now because now he's got a platinum album, right? Same scenario. CEOs are paid not really based on their salary. CEOs and real business people are paid with stocks and stock options. So what that means is they their compensation is tied to the stock price. So let's say you have a CEO. So when you hear CEOs made $100 million, it's not that that company, you know, when you think about your salary compensation, 100,000, $1 million, whatever it is that you're getting paid. Okay, that's pretty much it. Then you might have some kind of commission base uh, component to your salary. If you sold however many widgets that you are in the business of selling, then you get a kicker for exceeding a certain number. Well, it's similar to that but with stocks. So what these companies do is say to a CEO and the senior management, well, let's say the stock price is $10 when you got hired. They say if you could get the stock price to $20, right, which is a doubling of the stock price, we will give you 1 million shares of stock. So you have the option to buy 1 million shares at $10 when it hits $20, right? So you're getting to buy those shares at today's price when it hits that much greater price. See? So if you understand that, like you're telling me you're going to give me $20 in the future. If I can make this thing go to $20, but you're going to lock me in on the option. And all I have to pay is $10 to exercise that option when it hits $20. Okay. So now CEOs, the easiest way to make the stock price go up is to buy shares. So, okay, to put it simply, the amount of shares outstanding, it's called price per share, right? So if you want the price to go up, you just eliminate the amount of outstanding shares. Okay, so if there's 1 million shares and the price is $1 per share, if I buy back and eliminate 500,000 of those shares, I've now cut the share price in half. I mean, the amount of shares in half. Now, instead of there being 1 million shares, there's only 500,000 shares. That Just doing that alone will take the share price from $1 to $2 or more because there's less shares. So it's just a mathematical ratio of how many shares are outstanding, are available, uh, over the price per share. So as the amount of shares drop, the value, so it's just supply and demand. Think about it like that, right? As the supply decreases, the demand increases because there's less. There's only where there was 1 million shares before, now there's only 500,000 shares. So that immediately pumps up the price and I cash out those options. Hey, sounds like a great deal for me, right? Um, smoke them if you got them, right? So why not do it? And why not keep on doing it? And that's what they did. Every airline company bought back billions, billions of dollars worth of their own stock. And they kept on doing this because interest rates were low. Going back to the Jay-Z example, it was only costing them a penny per every share. But look at the upside. So they took on all this debt to buy back their stock, but understand why they bought back the stock. This is all a scheme, right? No. So I'm going to buy back the stock to push up the price so that I can cash out personally. Because remember now, the company has a lot more debt, but I personally just line my pockets uh, immensely. And this is where you see people. And so people sometimes ask me, well, how is that possible that so many people are now billionaires? Like, how is that? Well, that's how. Um, you can manipulate the stock market and your company stock in many different ways in order to enrich yourself. Now, how does that all come to today? And the question that might be on your mind is, okay, so with all of that, is this a good time to buy a stock? I know that's probably your only thing. Okay, should I buy now? And the answer is, well, I just told you the number one buyer of stocks are the corporations themselves. Now you're in an environment where there's no money. There, it's called liquidity. Where are you getting the money from? Now, understand the bailout. So you say, okay, they're going to take the bailout money and buy back their stock. No. Provisions were put into this new bailout package that I'm sure they have a lot of smart people right now working on workarounds to that. But there were provisions put into this new bailout package that prevents them from just directly doing that. So now the question is, how do they pump back the stock price up? Well, it's very difficult. So I do not recommend, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you what I'm doing myself. I've been, on my portfolio, I pretty much saw that this was a house of cards years ago. And I took a lot of hits from having a more short strategy. Short just means that you think the prices of the stocks are going to go down. Long means you think the prices of the stocks are going to go up. You know, I learned that shooting dice in Brooklyn. You know, that's pretty much the stock market. You're gambling, and that's it. Okay, so don't think it's anything. They try to put a bunch of fancy words to make it seem like they're so smart, but they're just a bunch of gamblers. I'm gambling. I'm one of the gamblers, and so yeah, I was taking a lot of hits because I was like, okay, this is a bunch of nonsense and it can't go on forever. And they kept on getting more money pumped into them when they should have crashed. Think about it like this. A guy, it's usually guys or even a woman, and she's buying handbags and shoes and he's buying fancy cars, but he's buying it all on credit, right? So, and you're like, oh, this guy is going to crash very soon. But what's keeping him or her afloat is that every time they max out one credit card, they're able to apply and get a new credit card. So they're able to keep this lifestyle going based on their continuous access to new credit so they can keep this thing going as long as they can get access to new, cheaper credit. As long as that can happen, they can keep it going. But in this scenario, there's some factors that are beyond just the amount access to credit, such as ratings. So you are able to get cheap credit as long as your credit rating maintains a high level. What's happening with a lot of these companies now is that within the last 2 weeks, rating agencies, Standard and Poor's, Fitch, Moody's, think about on the consumer level, you and I, we have Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, right? Okay. At the corporate level, there is uh, uh, ratings agencies, it's Fitch, Moody's, um, Standard and Poor's. These companies, these corporate rating agencies are now downgrading a lot of these. So think about it like, you know, on the consumer side, having a good uh, credit rating is like 750, 800, right? If you got an 800 score, you would be considered AAA rated on the corporate side. Well, companies that were AAA rated and able to get and access that super low 2%, 3%, uh, 1% even, uh, you know, funding. These companies are now being downgraded from AAA to A to B. Some are even triple B. Now, triple B rating is like going from an 800 to a 650. Now, a 650, once you pass the 600s on the consumer side, you're now mush, right? Now it's like what on the corporate side we call junk, right? So once you go into below triple B, you're now officially a junk bond. And but even triple B is puts you out. Nobody can really give you. So now those low interest rates when you were triple A, that's the thing that I look at. What are these ratings? And I'm telling you, these companies' ratings are about to take a hit. It's already started. So that means their carrying costs, that means the interest rate that they have to pay on their debts are going to go up. Remember now, they took out all these debts to do all these buybacks. So when that interest rate goes up on that huge amount of debt, that means your carrying cost, that carrying cost is what you have to pay to service your debt. You know, when you had AAA rating and you had that 800 credit score, yeah, you know, you had that $1 million in debt for nothing. You know, you were only paying. Matter of fact, you even got a credit card. Chase sent you that new Chase Reserve card, and you were only at zero interest for 15 months. Balling. You went swipe, swipe, right? And life was good. Then, you know, then you woke up, and then now it's at 0% interest, that low interest just shifted higher, 15%. So now just the minimum payments that you would have to make are, wow, you know, uh, things got a little tight. Uh, it was all good just a week ago, to stay in the Jay-Z uh, analogy. Um, so this is what you're seeing. This is the perception of everything being great and how the reality shifts so fast. And that's the thing. So now it's okay, all of that sounds doom and gloom. Okay, what are the solutions? I think the only solution is for you to really, and I can only talk what I'm doing, is to A, understand education is number one, because you can't just listen to some guy on YouTube or on whatever. You, it's all about your personal experience. What is your personal debt load? What is your personal asset uh, allocation, and what assets do you hold? But this is a different time. Within 2 weeks, you also went from the greatest job market ever to now 10 million people filing for unemployment, right? So you have to make decisions based on how you see this future. How do you see things really coming within the next 6 months? Do you think that this whole thing, this whole coronavirus health issue is going to resolve itself within the next 30 days and everything then is just going to go back to normal? Or if you think that, then your investment and ideas on how you really invest money will be different than if you think, wait a second, the way this administration is handling this and what's happening, I don't see this correcting itself for another 6 months to a year. Okay. If you have a more long-term view of how this crisis will linger, and I'm going to be honest, that's what I see. I see this lingering because the way this administration and government has handled it. I will just quickly talk about the difference between the China model versus the America model. China shut down, basically took an economic hit for 60 days and did things that, to be fair to America and Americans, uh, I don't even think we would have went for. Like they did some draconian stuff over in China, but they did free testing, free masks, free health. They built hospitals like a new hospital a day. They built like 100 hospitals. They said, forget about the economic consequences for those 60 to 90 days and really focused on the health component. We haven't done that. So we are just, you know, uh, fiddling at the edges. It's just today or yesterday that they said, oh, you know what's a great idea? Everybody should wear masks. Now, let me give you an example with the mask situation, which I agree with 100%. Uh, this is something that should have been done weeks ago. But still today, it's not a mandatory thing. In China, you're caught without a mask in public, you're going to jail. So, because just to quickly, it's about the spread. So, even if you have it or you're symptomatic or asymptomatic, you would not be able to spread it to others. That's the point of the mask. So, you're how do we get to health or medical issues from financial issues? Because the financial issues are tied to how well we respond and deal with this medical health issue. So will stocks increase? Will real estate increase or decrease? Is going to be determined based on, well, if people are not able to work, if people are not able to pay their rents, if people are not, well, you've got a little reprieve for 2 or 3 months for mortgages. But if this thing continues for a longer period of time, do you think they're going to give you a year reprieve on paying your mortgage? I doubt that. So I think cash is king, and you really have to take a more wait and see approach based on what you personally, I believe this is going to be a longer, more protracted issue. Um, you know, I don't see basketball coming back this year. I don't see even the NFL season happening this year. So these things have an impact on the amount of economic activity that can actually even happen. Well, if you are a small business owner and rented out uh, things in the stadium because, hey, you got inside a great contract to be in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. And, well, if that stadium isn't open, right, just like the basketball stadiums aren't open, well, you can't, that's going to impact your business. So really and truly, you have to, I only tell you what my belief is. My belief is that this is going to be a longer, more protracted because we have not taken on those more, and I would admit it would have been more draconian measures that China did. But because we didn't, it's going to cause pain for a longer period of time, months, 6 months minimum from today's date. So that's going to create a drag on the stock market. It's going to create a drag on the real estate market. So what do I think will go up besides from shorting? So I'm shorting stocks. I'm not, I'm, I've already offloaded real estate. A lot of Um, Gold and silver, I'm long on, but physically, you have gold miners that have already shut down, which means the production of gold will. So once again, it's going back to basic supply and demand. Supply is going to decrease, which which happens during a time where you have an increasing demand globally for gold. So I see gold, but physical, not paper, not GLD, nor these gold. Uh, uh, I mean, the spreads are blowing out in regards to actual physical gold, physical silver, um, and crypto. I'm big. I think that this, if I'm correct, and this malaise continues over a period of time, I think crypto, specifically Bitcoin, will will benefit because there's going to be issues at banks, there's going to be issues at ATMs, there's going to be issues on the stock market. So it's about capital flow. If people see that there's no money to be made in the banks, that, which are paying zero interest, if people see that there's no money to be made uh, going long on the stock market, if people see that there's no money to be made in real estate, they're now going to be searching for yield. Searching, that's just another fancy way. They're searching to find a way to make some money. Okay, how are we gonna make money? Yield. Okay, you know. Well, they're gonna go wherever that they see that they can make some money. And I think this crypto, gold, silver are going to be vehicles that they, uh, meaning that they I speak about are the average person. And at that, uh, I'm going to leave 15 minutes if anybody has questions, but that's just uh, how I see things.
All right, thank you so much for that, Major. I think we do have a few questions. Oh, Randolph, you raised your hand. Are you still with us? No, you raised your hand. Did you have a question? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I didn't have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Hello?
got it.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Who was that?
This is Kashab. I have a question. The question that I have is in regards to people's retirement. Those who are looking to get their retirement pension money. How do you perceive that their retirement is going to be affected, especially some of the elderly baby boomers that are looking to retire? Are they going to be able to access their money, and other people who are projecting, that they'll try to cash out some of their money? Are people going to be able to access their money now or for the long game?
Well, once again, that decision will have to come down to your belief on short term and long term. If you see that, if you're talking about a person that is elderly right now and they're looking and their window is the next year, then I don't see where they're going to see any rebound or this so-called V-shaped recovery that is being, bantered about. I don't see that happening in the next year. So if that's the case, you would be better off to take advantage right now. Um, there are programs that they're in this latest package that eliminate the penalties for uh, early withdrawals. So I okay, let me just say, get to the point. Take your money out. That's what I would recommend. The pension funds were blowing up even before this whole thing. Um, you know, Chicago, Illinois pension, um, California pensions were a disaster even before this. Bottom line, even before this, you wasn't going to get your money if you're looking at the next 5 years. There's a great chance before all of this happened where pensioners were not going to get their money. So if I was that person, I would take advantage of the fact that they have eliminated these early withdrawal penalties and take my money and find other areas to uh, put capital because, like I said, it's very fragile. As you see, you went from the best of times to the worst of times real quick, 0 to 100 real quick, and you don't know how much worse. I have a number of another 30 to 40% write down in the markets, stock market, bond markets, um, because this is global, right? This is not just an America thing. So you're talking about global markets. So there isn't an escape. So when you think back to 2008, you could find sectors that, okay, the mortgage sector was bad, but I can go to healthcare or I can escape to another sector. This is something totally different. This is, I don't know a sector, even healthcare uh, is going to, you would think healthcare would be benefiting right now, but they're not because the system is being stretched. So you're not looking at a situation where it's just a healthy healthcare system. You know, when these doctors are now starting to contract this virus themselves, nurses. So how long before these doctors and nurses say, man, forget about this. I'm not going into work anymore. You already see strikes from doctors and nurses because, of just uh, the manic nature of things that's happening. So to answer your question, yes, pensions are in big trouble, and they were in big trouble before this. So once again, don't listen to the perception that everything was fine before this. No, the reality is things were already bad before this. And now this is just the straw that's breaking the camel's back. Any other question? Okay. Either I did
Thank
a
you.
good job of explaining or I did a horrible job. Nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about.
I think someone else had a question. I'll mute.
If you have a question, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand so I can unmute you on the side.
Now, I have another question in regards to how someone can access. You mentioned some things like cryptocurrency and gold. Um, I think normally people don't really know how to access these things as options. what do you recommend, or is there a way that they can plug into you? I'm sure that your information is available, but what do you recommend for them to access? You mentioned real gold, not paper. What are the options that people have in order to do that if they do take out their money and have cash? And also, is it safe for them to keep gold? And what do you recommend as far as that?
Well, I mean, now you're, well, okay, let's start with the gold component. Now, the physical gold and physical silver is really an insurance policy. I that's how I look at it. If, like I said, this the nature of these markets, and even the banks themselves are very fragile. So understand what took place. Banks have now been eliminated, or has banks have eliminated the need for any reserve. Okay, so I don't know. Well, I'll act as if we don't know. Okay, the audience doesn't know. We are on what's called a fractional reserve banking system. Okay, that meant that banks had to, for every dollar that they had in assets or were able to lend, they only needed to keep a fraction of that on reserve. So what people normally refer to as 10 cents for every dollar, 10%, which is actually false, because those reserve requirements actually went down as low as 2%, right? And now they've been eliminated altogether. So right now, banks can just print as much money as they want, because so that people actually know most of the money supply is not made by governments. About 80% of all money that you think about, money, when we say money, we mean cash-like assets, treasuries, CDs, a lot of assets are considered money. Even debts considered money. So credits are considered money. So their ability to issue credits is now unlimited. They have no reserve requirement. That might sound like a good thing, but it's really bad, because what that means now is that either A, they're going to come up with some kind of system to eliminate cash, or they're going to face the headwind of, okay, you can issue all these credits that you want, but at some point in time, it's about faith. So now you're looking at it from a global standpoint. How much are people willing to accept these just made up credits, right? So with that fragile banking system, that can crash any moment. That's why you see central banks around the world buying up gold. China has stockpiled gold, oil. The credit system is in jeopardy. So this is where your question comes back to physical. So it's about physical. If this system collapses, which is possible, I know, and I just want whoever is listening to say, did you ever think that quarantines in America would have been possible? No. these last 2, 3 weeks, do you think this would have been possible? No. Um, but now it's here, right? Same thing. You probably think that it's impossible for this banking system as you know it to ever go away. But you see how things can change real quick. So that's why you hold on to physical gold, because just in case this thing turns left on you real quick, and those credits that are in the system now are worthless. Those paper dollars that are in your pocket are now worthless. You are now in a system where it's all about what do you physically have? Do you have physical land? Do you have physical gold, silver, even Bitcoin, even though it's not, but it's a thing that has, if you hold your private keys, do you own those Bitcoins? Big difference versus you having the Bitcoin in your personal wallet versus Coinbase having it on the screen, right? So if you went to purchase uh, Bitcoin and you just went to your Coinbase account and you bought, and then you just left it there, you don't own those Bitcoins. Coinbase has, right? So when you buy those coins at Coinbase or Gemini, which is the Gemini.com, Coinbase.com, pretty much the easiest ways for people to purchase and onboard fiat to crypto, meaning take your dollars, your credits in your bank account, and buy Bitcoin or any other crypto. But then you immediately, once you have to transfer that to your own personal wallet, an actual physical wallet or something where you have in crypto, it's called private keys. If you don't have that, you don't own that asset. When Coinbase has it, they have the private keys. You don't. So then for you, there are tons of bullion dealers. Bullion is just fancy word for the actual metal itself in terms of gold and silver. There are tons of bullion dealers in every city. You could just you could Google buy physical gold, bullion dealer, and you will find somebody in normally like a diamond district or, some district that engages in jewelry. If you go to the jewelry district in your respective city, you'll find people that in that area that will sell you a half a kilo, a gram of gold. You know, that's where. So to answer the question, where would you go to access it? You would go into any district that is in New York. There's like a diamond district. You would go into those districts, the jewelry district in your respective city, find, and that's where you would find bullion dealers or people willing to sell you actual bars or some grams or some specific weight of gold or silver. You can go on to Coinbase.com or Gemini.com, and that's where you would access the ability to buy amounts of crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever your preference is. Any other question?
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you all. Dar, it's fantastic what you're doing. Um, I will support you in any way, and definitely, if you ever need anything, just let me know. All right. And with
Thank you,
that
Major.
said,
Before you go, Major, is
yeah.
there, I believe you have some information, if you have any information, if anyone has any additional questions, or if they wanted to, and I don't know if you're open to that, but if anyone has any questions, where should they go, whether it's through you or through anyone, where should they go to get additional information if they wanted to reach you, or if they needed additional information, because you did mention education, where should they go to get that information?
Uh, I think the you know, I, I'm a big proponent of YouTube University. You know, I'm a big proponent of YouTube University because I think right now a lot of the things that are happening are not being told to us in the mainstream media. So it's not just about information, it's about how um, how how valuable and how real is this information that you're being given, right? That's the issue. Can you trust that information? You know, I mean, we just spoke about perception versus reality, right? So we're talking about, where did this perception come from? This perception came from media pundits that were telling you talking points that were created by certain individuals, whether that is uh, government, politicians, or big bankers, or so everybody has their reason, right? I'm not selling you anything. Nothing that I do is to say I'm telling you all this, and you know what? Buy my book. Buy my, I can sell you all this. No, I really operate at a more enterprise and more institutional level. So I don't really have anything to sell you as an individual. But, there are tons of places, like I said, the Coinbases, the um, local bullion dealers. There are things that you can access. And like I said, YouTube University has great guys on there that are giving um, good analysis that is not um, uh, being spoken about in the mainstream media. And so uh, that's the question, because education is very, it can be education is good, but miseducation can be deadly. And I think that's what you're seeing. You have so many people that are being miseducated by those so-called educational, these people are supposed to be the experts. Well, you go down to your bank, if everything I just told you, you go to your banker and he will tell you, oh, that's nonsense. The bank is fine. Oh, we would never go out of business. That's what else is he gonna say? He works for the bank, right? Or she works for the bank, So, but that's, if you think about it, he or she is supposed to be the expert. So you watch these stock market shows, Bloomberg, CNBC. You're watching, a cheerleading. You're watching, so you're watching Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. That's what you're watching, because just like the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders, they're not going to tell you, oh, Cowboys are not going to win. No disrespect to Cowboys fans, but the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders are always going to tell you the Cowboys are the best. So when uh, you know, I used to hear my grandfather used to say, uh, "There's no fisherman thinks his fish stinks," right? So if you're selling fish, hey, I'm fishing. This is the best fish. So you've got to really be able to educate yourself, and that's what I think this program. And the only reason I agreed, besides from just knowing Kachab for years, is that it's about real information. And that's really what you need. And I think you really want to go on, and I say YouTube University, go on, look at a bunch of different people and see what really resonates with your spirit, not with your ideology, but with your spirit. You know, is it's just like when you're listening to me talk. If your spirit says, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, then you shouldn't listen to anything I say. You know, go with that spirit. And I think this is time for us to get back to spirit and really be able to read through the nonsense and the con games and the talking points that are being put out there. What's your agenda? Why are you saying stocks are going to have a V-shaped recovery? Why do you think that? Could it be because you sell stocks? Could it, you know, I don't sell gold. I don't sell it to individuals. But if now if I said buy gold, buy silver, buy Bitcoin, and then I automatically turned around and said you could buy it all from me, you should kind of wonder, like, everything he said sounded good, but wait a second, he wants us to just buy his stuff. So, I like to listen to people that really don't have a dog in the fight. Okay, why are you saying these things? And if you're saying it, it's the old problem, reaction, solution. If you're just telling me a problem and all of a sudden in your back pocket, I've got the solution, then I say, be leery of anybody who presents the problem. And, but wait, I have the solution. Be a little bit leery of that. That's what I would say.
Fantastic, Ms. Harris. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Such great information, pertinent information, especially the times that we're living right now. So I want to say thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I put your website up on a chat. Anybody wanted to take a look, either get in contact with you, reach out for any other questions or anything they might have, they'll be able to do that. So for those of you that are attending, I just posted his website on the chat. I also want to thank those that joined in today. I don't know if this is your second or third or first day, but if this is your first day, you can actually go to Facebook, and we have the replays on Facebook under video. I'll post that here on the chat as well. And if you haven't signed up, or if you have friends and family that you want to sign up, please go to the 30-day redemption challenge, 30dayredemption.com. And we'll end this here today. Again, thank you, Major Harris, and thank you for those who came out today on a Saturday afternoon. And you guys stay safe out there.
Definitely. Stay safe. Have a great
Thank you.